Good morning, good afternoon, or good night from whenever and wherever you are watching us. I am Cameron Scandal. That is Steven Treffler. And we are the Sound. Thank you so much for joining us today, folks. Steve, happy to have you back. Glad your work could let you get out this time to be here at the appropriate time. It is a fantastic time of year. The NBA playoffs are right around the corner. At the time of recording, the Masters will be starting tomorrow. Well, I guess they kind of started today, the Wednesday festivities, but officially starts tomorrow. It is a great sports time of year. This is truly, we just got over March Madness. Now we're going into those two things. One of my truly favorite times of year. Steve, going into the Masters, speaking of that, who you got winning the whole thing going into this year?
Man, I'm going to take Bryson DeChambeau. I think he's been playing really good on LIV recently, but I think that it'll be able to translate and he can get his first green jacket.
Yeah, I got Rory, who is my personal favorite golfer, even though he historically has not been a great Masters performer. He is right now the most bet on golfer to win the whole thing. He's playing at a great pace right now. We'll see where he ends up with that. But with the show at hand today, we got a lot of good stuff for you. We got a good NBA heavy show today. A bit of, I don't want to call it breaking news, but it's kind of breaking to us, only a day removed. So without further ado, we are going to quickly give you a thing to mention. Steve, something that is close to your heart, if you want to tell us about that.
As we know, the great chase has been going on with Alexander Ovechkin chasing down Wayne Gretzky's record. And finally, Sunday night, against the Islanders, he scored 895 and passed the great one in all-time goals in NHL history. So just give it up for Ovi real quick. The significance of this is obviously Wayne Gretzky is the GOAT. He is, nine MVPs in the NHL. He is undeniably the greatest NHL player ever, but this was a record that most people thought was an unbreakable record. And to see my childhood hero in sports be able to finally reach the pinnacle at 39 years old, and it's just such a significant moment. So it definitely is a thing to mention.
Where does this put Ovi? Because I am not as into hockey or as you and know the whole spectrum of the sport. Where does this put Ovi all time in terms of where he now ranks amongst the other greats?
Definitely cements him top 10. And anyone who tells you otherwise, tell him to come see me, because it's pretty clear cut top 10. You know, he has, since the time he came in as a rookie, been nothing but the most dangerous man on the ice at any given moment. And still at the age of 39, he's top 3 in goals in the NHL this season. It's just, he is a cemented top 10. If I had to give you a solid guess, 6 to 7.
We are going to get into our first topic of the day. Mike Malone and the Denver Nuggets parting ways. It kind of came quite literally out of nowhere. If I have the picture, I think I still do. Steve's jaw quite literally hit the floor when I broke the news to him that it had happened. Steve, like I said, this was a shock to everyone, and I would imagine the Nuggets players and fans included of this firing. What is your reaction to this news, and what does the future look like for Mike Malone?
Honestly, when you told me, the first thing that I thought of was, what did he do? Because this isn't a move that a franchise makes 3 games before the playoffs without there being a reason. Now, it's interesting to note that the Denver Nuggets are owned by the Kroenke family. Josh Kroenke is the president of basketball operations for the Denver Nuggets, and that family also owns the Colorado Avalanche, the Rams in the NFL, Arsenal Football Club over in England, and it is important to note that these franchises keep hold of their coaches and they give them chances. And we're 2 years removed from a championship in Denver. You and me have talked about Mike Malone being a possible top 5 coach in the NBA right now. Mm-hmm. So the relationship that he had with the other people in the front office, the relationship that he had with the players, like, was there something we obviously didn't know about going on? And it's interesting to note that when Josh Kroenke was asked about why they fired Mike Malone, he said, and quote, wins can mask a lot of issues. And I think that kind of speaks to the severity of maybe what was going on in Denver. If even the owner is saying we've been heading this direction for a long time, this is not new. We were going to do this at the end of the season anyways. So Cam, to me, it's hard to wrap my head around. And I think that's the most I can give you at this point. I still don't understand.
Yeah, and another piece of this is that the Nuggets are also not bringing back their GM, and a lot of the reason for not bringing him back and Mike Malone is that they butted heads a lot and had a lot of issues. Now, as you said, the current president, he held a he's not taking questions during interviews with the national media, but he's just talking to the Nuggets media, which it gave me a lot of vibes of when after the Nickelodeon stuff with I can't remember his first name, with Schneider. I don't know, I can't think of his first name. He did an interview with someone else from Nickelodeon, and it
Rob
was
Schneider?
Rob Schneider. No, not Rob Schneider. Not Rob Schneider. That's an actor. The producer. He was a producer who did like a whole bunch of different Nickelodeon shows. Drake and Josh and iCarly and Victorious. Anyway, he did an interview later with someone else, another Nickelodeon actor, and it was the most staged, like softball lob questions I've ever seen. Like it was clearly an effort by the PR team to get it under control. So this was not a legitimate questioning. I mean, he was never going to give us any sort of real pieces of information. But what I find very interesting is that he says by firing Mike Malone, he is trying to get the best squeeze, to use his terms, out of the rest of the team.
I became comfortable with the thinking of, let's try to shake this tree and squeeze as much out of this as we can. And that's where we arrived at with the decisions today.
How is firing your coach minutes before the playoffs start a way to get the most out of your franchise? And he says, it's a lot of, I believe in the guys we have, and I think they'll be able to get past this.
I have a complete belief and trust in our group of players that are in there. And I have complete trust and belief in our assistant coaches and their ability to step up into different roles. And maybe if their voices are a little louder in certain areas, maybe they can squeeze some of that juice that I've been talking about.
And if Mike Malone was this hard-nosed coach who was getting the most out of his players, and like you said, we had argued was a top 5 NBA coach as of right now, like you said, then there clearly was something we don't know about, or there was more to this toxicity stuff. And if you look back throughout NBA history, teams who have been to the finals that have fired their NBA coaches, you look at like the Bucks, who now people are saying have 0% chance to make the finals. You look at the Raptors when they got rid of Nick Nurse. He's not even who hears about him anymore. And he look with Philadelphia, and now look at Toronto post Nick Nurse, like where they're at since that's been fired, have never been the same place. Look at Phoenix after they fired after winning Coach of the Year, Monty Williams. Yeah, I almost said Daryl Morey. Monty Williams, they're now in disarray with Kevin Durant leaving. It's not a great look after a championship coach leaves, what happens to the teams in the years that follow. You had said this to me the other night that, was Jokic not involved, but how much did he know?
Right.
What was his opinion on it? Did he give the okay and the green light? If there's ever going to be a superstar player or a best player on your team who you are not going to consult, or who isn't going to care one way or the other, it's going to be Nikola Jokic. Now, I have also heard that he liked Mike Malone, but again, I mean, I'm not in the inner circle. Who knows?
Right.
But there's really no angle you can take this where it makes whole 100% sense.
Well, now, like you had just mentioned, if Jokic and Mike Malone were tight, what does this mean for Jokic and the relationship between the front office there? Josh Kroenke talks about this 4-game stretch that they just went on where they lost 4 consecutive games. They're in a really tight race in the West, and it just doesn't. Why would you want to bring in an inexperienced coach Like, not saying he's inexperienced in his coaching career, but within the world of the NBA, why would you want to bring in a coach, an assistant coach, at the most important time of your season if you're in that tight of a race? Do you think this impacts their ability to make a deep playoff run now that they
Oh
don't
yeah,
have?
they're done. They're done.
Oh, wow.
They're done.
They're cooked. Goose is cooked.
I can't imagine the only way that they would be able to make a legitimate run is if Jokic has an all-time postseason or goes to a place we have quite literally never seen. And another thing that not Mike Malone, that that
Josh
Kroenke
Kroenke
says is I believe in the rest of the coaching staff and that voices will become louder once they're in those elevated positions. So he clearly, the only issue and the only thing that brought about this firing was Mike Malone. And like he says, we're trying to get the most out of this team, get the most squeeze. We didn't have a good run post the All-Star break. We're on this weird 4-game losing streak.
We went on an eight-game win streak right before the All-Star break. But since then, I think we're 11-13. We've lost our last 4, and we're trending towards a direction that I thought would probably be a very near end to our season in the near future.
You're 2 years removed from a finals, and you're going to say because you lost a few games in March, you're going to fire your head coach? Like it makes absolutely no sense. And again, unless everybody within Denver was just out on Mike Malone, I don't know how.
I didn't hear about that. Did you hear about that?
Like, no, that's the thing. Like, it came from nowhere. And again, the what I thought was the driving factor was the GM and Mike Malone had issues. So instead of firing one or the other, they fired them both. But from this interview, it clearly seems like it was only Mike Malone.
Yeah.
I'm not going to act like I'm the biggest Mike Malone advocate, but I'm not anti-Mike Malone. But this just makes no sense. I don't know logistically how you came to this decision.
Me either.
Moving on to our next topic, it is everyone's favorite segment, Soundbite. Kids forget what Soundbite is. It is where Steve and I take a listen to any sort of post-game interview, a podcast clip, whatever the case may be. If someone says something interesting that we want to take a listen to, we listen. 2 of our, if not the 2 biggest sports idols in both of our lives, Nick Wright and Chris Broussard of First Things First, have said some things that Steve and I clearly just don't agree with. Nick Wright and Chris Broussard have said that Nikola Jokic is firmly in the top 20 NBA players of all time.
No, he's not.
Before we get into what we think, in case you can't already tell what that is, let's take a listen to Nick and Brew saying some things.
I think he's firmly in the top 20.
I agree with that.
If he doesn't win more, it'll just stop him from like he's doing stuff that could get him on the periphery of the top 10. Especially if he wins championships, then you're really talking about getting him in there. So that's where I feel on that. I think he's set in the top 20.
So there you have it. That is Nick Wright and Chris Broussard saying that Nikola Jokic is one of the 20 greatest players ever. Steve and I clearly do not agree with this notion. We have actually in the last 2 or 3 weeks brought up our top 30 NBA players list quite frequently. In case you forget, here it is. This is just our top 20, which is what we're focusing on. I had mentioned last show and maybe the show before, Steve and I in the summer will be really doing a deep dive into where Jokic ranks firmly all time. But we know for sure he's not top 20. We can go back and forth talking about why we think Nick and Brew are wrong. So let's just start with 20 and go to 15 because he ain't getting past that.
There's a lot of reasons he's not ahead of Dwayne Wade, but the biggest one for me is Dwayne Wade is the true definition of a champion and what a champion is. Yeah. Dwayne Wade taught the best player of all time how to win. He elevated Miami in his second or third year to a finals and won finals MVP with an aging Shaq and a decent cast around him. Dwayne Wade is one of the greatest winners, in my opinion, of all time.
I mean, I just talked about D-Wade and Harden last week, and like if you're teaching the GOAT how to win, I don't know how much more of a plus that can be on your resume. I mean, there was someone who commented on that video, D Wade could have had the argument for being the best player in the league. Now, I don't agree with that, but certainly could be on the board. Dwayne Wade also in the conversation for maybe the best player ever to never win an MVP.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So, yeah, D Wade, like you said, the ultimate winner, the ultimate champion, knows what it takes, rises to the occasion, clearly not things that Jokic has. Above D Wade, David Robinson, which I think some people will be more okay with if they're not aware. But David Robinson, who had a claim, or I should say you can make the argument, the best center in the era of the greatest centers of all time. Now, again, debatable who you want to have there, probably Hakeem for a good portion of it. And another thing about David Robinson that Jokic can't even sniff, 8-time All-NBA defense. Jokic has one claim to a share of a vote for an All-NBA defensive team. And David Robinson being the first franchise, or I shouldn't say the first, George Gervin might have a claim to that, being the first, let's say, largely recognized Spurs superstar, showing Tim Duncan how to win and getting that historic franchise rolling. David Robinson, for a lot of people, I think, goes under the radar and goes underappreciated.
David Robinson was one of the most physically gifted specimens on the court. David Robinson would go to war with the Shaqs, the Karl Malones. I mean, he was banging in the post with the best of all time, guys who are on this list ahead of him, and he won an MVP in those eras. David Robinson was also a consummate professional. David Robinson was not a bad person. He was in the Navy. He had to serve 2 years before even being able to play in the NBA. So, like, David Robinson for me is somebody who is underappreciated, I think, at sometimes. But I think once people remember who he is, they're like, oh, wait, yeah, David Robinson was crazy.
The next person, I also think people are going to be like, Jokic is way better than this person, but they don't understand the history of the game with Oscar Robertson, the Big O, the original Mr. Triple-Double. And again, something that Jokic has never displayed to us that Oscar Robertson has is it was not just empty numbers and stats with Oscar Robertson. It was directly reflecting on helping the rest of the team and elevating to another place. I mean, also Oscar Robertson helping get the career going of Lou Alcindor out in Milwaukee to get their franchise's first championship. And people like to dog on the 60s and say that, again, I think people will find a lot of holes in trying to make the argument for Jokic over Oscar Robertson. But if you go back and look at the history of the game and see what Oscar Robertson did and what he was about, I don't know how strong of an argument you can make for Jokic being over him.
Oscar Robertson, you already know how I feel about him. 8 consecutive first-team All-NBAs, I believe, is what his was it 8?
Let me look. I'm gonna look. I'll pull up his page while you're going.
All right. Anyways, I'm pretty sure he had 8 first-team, consecutive first-team All-NBAs. Jokic right now, I believe, is at 4 or 5. He'll probably get another one this year, but still doesn't have as many as Oscar Robertson. But at the same time, what Oscar Robertson, like you just said, one thing a lot of these guys have ahead of Jokic is they've molded another superstar. Now, maybe Oscar Robertson didn't mold Kareem's game, but how much of how to play the game and how to play it the right way and being a mentor to Lou Alcindor was Oscar Robertson. So that's something that Jokic doesn't have, that intangible, and that's something we do see in Oscar Robertson.
He's got 9 straight first teams, by the way. I looked it up.
There we go.
So, number 17, who Nick and Brew also in that same clip say is outside of the top 20, and in my opinion, by everyone, is underrated, and Karl Malone. One thing about Karl Malone that I always appreciate is, first of all, he's top 3 in all-time scoring.
I think
top 5. I mean, minimum top. I know he's up there. He's up there in the all-time scoring list. I forget his exact place, but he is definitely top 5. Just like I said about David Robinson, winning MVPs in that era is certainly not nothing. And before LeBron, Karl Malone was the blueprint for longevity in professional athletes. You had said to me today, which I don't know if I actually knew this, was it the oldest player to win an MVP or to be, was that what it was?
Yep.
And Karl Malone also has a large portion of the season where he is of his career, where he is averaging 29, 30 points a game. Again, when you're talking about the 90s and the Jordan era and how tough it was to score, that is not nothing, especially for big men. I think Karl Malone goes criminally underrated, and he certainly should be in top 20, in my opinion, or in our opinion.
Karl Malone had 11 consecutive first-team All-NBAs. Karl Malone has finished top 5 in the MVP voting 9 times in his career. Karl Malone is somebody who, is he the best player to never win a ring? Is he one of the best players to never win a ring? He's on that list. The duo of him and John Stockton was one of the greatest duos in NBA history, and Karl Malone is a large portion as why John Stockton is the all-time assists leader.
Oh, yeah.
Karl Malone is light years ahead of Jokic, in my opinion. Now, Cam, I want to stop right here and ask you a question. If we're saying that Jokic isn't top 20, right? Because we both agree, what does he need to do to get to top 20?
I need to see something other than numbers. I need to see a tangible set of games, series, moments that I can look at and say, wow, that is not something everyone can do. I respect Jokic's numbers. I respect his game. And, you know, my big thing forever with Jokic was I got to see it, and then I'll give you credit. He has shown it to me. I've seen it. I haven't seen all of it. One thing that all these guys we're talking about has over Jokic is that when the playoffs start, like we always say, when the lights are brightest, what separates the goods from the greats are those moments and are those series where we can see what they're truly about. We haven't gotten that from Jokic. We just simply haven't. The best argument for Jokic is he has created his own archetype. There is now players where you could say he is like a Jokic. And that is special within itself, but it can only get you so far. As we've said for years, the further you go up the ladder, the more nitpicky we have to be. So, again, Jokic's game is great. I respect Jokic for what he's done and what he is doing. But, unfortunately, to go higher up, you got to do more, and he's just not doing it.
You know, when I look at Nikola Jokic, one, I know he's a 3-time MVP, potential 4-time MVP this year. The problem here, folks, is I don't really count his first 2 MVPs. To me, it's the same argument as like a Steve Nash when he won his first 2 MVPs. Jokic's most recent MVP, I do agree with. I believe Giannis should have won the first and Embiid should have won the second, and that is not my Philly bias. That's truthfully what I believe.
Moving on to our third and final topic, it is everyone's favorite tier system, the segment without a name, because we have yet to come up with one. Scandal Scale has been the placeholder name. Still have not officially cleared that. Today, I have made yet again another tier list of the NBA teams as we go into the playoffs here shortly. Who has the best chances to make a run? Who's got the worst chances to make a run? Steve has not seen this list. Steve, actually, that's kind of not true. Steve, I asked Steve for
I did not look at it.
Steve didn't look at the teams. I asked him for an aesthetic question, but he was not consulted on this. So, Steve, are you ready to look at these tiers heading into the playoffs?
I'm nervous.
You don't be nervous. It's going to be great. It's going to be a good time. Let's take a look. All right, so here we have it as Steve does a real deep inspection, taking a look at the tiers, starting at the bottom and working our way up. At the bottom, teams with no chance. Now, Phoenix is only included at this point in time because as of the time of recording, they are not officially eliminated from playoff contention or play-in contention. Miami almost made up another tier, but I don't know. I have not felt confident in them this season really at all, except for Tyler Hero. Chicago, Orlando, no chance. Atlanta, cut me a break, and we just talked about Phoenix. like I said, these teams have really no chance of going anywhere in the postseason. Moving up to the next tier, the Pistons and the Pacers. Because did I want to put these teams with the rest of the play-in teams? No. Did I think that they were going to legitimately go any further than these teams? No. So it was one of those weird things where I couldn't put them in the tier above them, and I didn't feel comfortable with the tier below them. So they kind of sit in their own weird middle gray area, Pistons and Pacers. We then have the teams that have kind of a chance. Can these teams maybe get hot, spoil some fun, win around? Maybe. I don't know. I really doubt it. If Anthony Davis can come back and look really healthy and do what he did last Lakers playoff run, maybe could beat a team. Sacramento, Steve, was your dark horse heading into the season. Can they catch fire and maybe do something? Again, maybe, I don't know. I doubt it. Memphis has been all over the place this season, but they have been staying afloat. So again, can they maybe spoil something? I guess we'll see. Kind of a chance, kind of. Then we have could ruin a run. So again, I think these teams have slightly better chances to beat those teams that I mentioned, but I don't think they're going to go real deep. Now, like New York, can they beat a team like Cleveland or Milwaukee, who I think is better than them? Maybe. Houston, young, but they're like the Walmart version of Oklahoma City. Do I think that they could maybe get hot and spoil a team's fun and win a round or two? Again, better than the teams below them. And Minnesota, same thing. Just coming off of a conference finals appearance, Anthony Edwards has been playing really well. Julius Randle, although historically not great in the playoffs, we'll see what happens there. Like I said, these teams could ruin a better team's run, but I doubt it. Missing a piece. So these teams, if they had maybe one more thing on them, they could maybe do a run. I have said multiple times now on this show, I don't think if Donovan Mitchell is your team's best player, you're ever going to be making a finals run. So They're just missing a better franchise player, and Denver is missing a head coach, as we just discussed moments ago. So if these teams just had an extra piece, or if there was something more about them, I could really get behind them, but they just don't, so I can't. So they are just simply missing a piece. Above them, leaning on legends. So Milwaukee, as I have said multiple times, they're my pick to make the finals out of the East. I am sticking with that pick still, and I think they're going to ride Giannis's coattails. He has been having an insane end of the season, especially since Dame has been gone. I want to see if I could get just a blurb of his numbers here since the Dame injury. But he's been playing really well. Are they going to have enough left in the tank or depth-wise? I don't know. We'll see. But like I said, they are really leaning on Giannis. With Golden State, playoff Jimmy, is he going to come back around after doing what he did in Miami? I really have no idea. I shouldn't say his psyche. Well, yeah, his psyche has to be a little bit different since that went down. He can act all tough and cool ever he wants. He had a connection there. We'll see if he can go back into that spot with Golden State. I mean, Steph Curry, but people talked a few years ago about was his championship window closing. Now here he is. People say Warriors have a legitimate chance to win another one. Can he unlock something like playoff Jimmy where he can lead the Golden State on yet again another finals run? So Milwaukee and Golden State leaning on their legends. Above them, contenders. Listen, I can't go anywhere without me hearing or people telling me that Oklahoma City is going to make the finals. No, they're just not. I felt bad putting them to be honest with you, they were actually almost on the tier above them simply because I felt bad, but I've been getting berated with that so much. It's like, I mean, I guess they can't technically, but I really don't believe in them. Again, sort of like the Dallas, Sacramento, Memphis run. I think they have a slightly better chance than the Bucks and Warriors. Not as good of a chance as the teams above them. But like I said, you can't go anywhere without hearing Oklahoma City's making the NBA Finals because of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I'm not buying into that narrative. OKC at the number, 3 position. And at the top of our tiers, these are my Western, both of our Western Conference Finals pick, and Steve, your Eastern Finals pick. I mean, Boston, it's disrespectful to not have them at the very top of this list with how they're playing this season and being the defending champions. We have talked about multiple times how we feel with LeBron and Luka, how they're playing right now and how they have the Lakers vibing going into this postseason. I think they are the two most dangerous teams in basketball right now. So I think they clearly have to be the two contenders for each conference. And that's it. That is all the tiers. Steve, thank you. Thank you very much. You were giving this some interesting looks as I was going through and explaining. You were doing a lot of head shaking. Let me hear your thoughts.
So as you know, I'm a big believer in what the Pistons have going on with JB Bickerstaff in Detroit right now. Cade Cunningham he's found a gear that we have not seen yet. And he also has the Pistons playing really well right now. With the Kings losing De'Aaron Fox and losing a large portion of their leadership in that, I think I would switch the Pistons and the Kings just personally. My dark horse prediction went through the crapper when De'Aaron Fox got traded to the Spurs. So I'll own that. The only other one on here that I am kind of confused, and I just wanted to talk through it a little bit with you. You believe in the Rockets over the Grizzlies. We have seen Ja Morant the last 10 games. He has been on an absolute tear. He has returned to that it's me against the world mentality, and that was the best Ja Morant that we ever saw in the NBA. He has Jaren Jackson Jr. still playing at a defensive player of the year level there. They have Desmond Bane, who is once again still having a great season. And with Ja Morant, I just think that they have more experience. And you and me have said often that youth doesn't translate to the playoffs. And the Rockets are literally what Oklahoma City was 3 years ago. I just found it interesting that you didn't put the Grizzlies up there and move the Rockets elsewhere. But go ahead.
Between the Rockets and the Grizzlies, who do you think is the best player?
Ja Morant.
Is better than Şengün?
You know I'm a Şengün guy, dude. You know
this season.
Guy. Yeah. Oh yeah. Have you seen Ja's numbers?
I think Houston. We disagree on that. I think Houston has the best player. I think Houston has the better coach. I think Houston has the better culture.
Who's coaching in Houston right now?
Ime Udoka.
Okay.
I think Houston has a better culture. I think, especially as of late, now this isn't detrimental, but I think especially as of late with the Ja Morant stuff, there's none of that going on in Houston. I think Houston has been, in terms of their building to this moment, has gone more efficiently than Memphis, especially with the Ja stuff being in and out. And I think that with Houston's positioning in the West this season, and the narrative that has been surrounding them, I think they're going to have a larger chip on their shoulder. And if those two teams played in a series, I'd pick Houston in, I want to say 5, but maybe 6 the most.
See, that's where I think we're going to have the disagreement, because we've seen big games from Ja in the playoffs. When's the last time you saw Şengün in the playoffs? What experiences have you seen from Şengün in the playoffs, and Jalen Green and Jabari Smith Jr. and Dylan Brooks? Like, what have we seen from this team that leads you to believe that they'd be able to win a series over a team that has already proven they can win a series?
You act as if Ja Morant has been in the playoffs for 8 years.
How many
of a game sample size are we talking? Like, it can't, like,
at least I have a sample size.
But again, I think that with Ja's absence and the lack of continuity within Memphis, with and without Ja, or the fact that, like, when they were there was that weird point of time where Ja was out and they were the worst team ever, and then he came back and then he was out again and they were the best team ever. So they're just such an inconsistent group. And like I said, I don't know what the identity or culture of Memphis is right now. And while I respect Ja Morant for sure, Ja Morant at one point in time was a top minimum 12 NBA player. That has not been the case for the last 2.5 seasons. Ja Morant needs to show me a full full season and a full legitimate postseason of doing things like that for me to reinvest in him. I just don't think right now at this point in time, I would back the short history of John Moran against what Houston has been building towards in that same time frame.
No, I guess we'll see. I think that this is a year where Ja can prove that to us. And I think right now he's peaking at the right time. He has gained national attention for other obvious reasons, but he is also playing at a very high level right now. He is peaking at the right time coming into the playoffs. So, yeah, I think we'll see. But other than that, this list is fantastic, and I agree with every other spot on this list.
And that's going to do it for us today, guys. Hope you enjoyed the show and the content we had for you today. Hope you all are enjoying the Masters weekend as we get into the thick of it here going into Saturday. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, topics you want us to talk about or discuss, let us know. Leave a comment. Shoot us a message. As always, you can follow our Instagram page at @thesound_YT. Shoot us a message there if you have an idea for something you want to talk about. Like, comment, subscribe, share this video with your friends in case you want to have them be better informed in the sports world. And folks, always remember, if you are ever in need of intelligent and cogent sports analysis, listen to the sound. We will always have you covered. Thank you so much for joining us today, folks. We hope you have a great rest of your day or night. Stay warm, stay safe, take care. We'll see you next time.
Listen to the sound. I listen to the sound.